All right, guys. So welcome to the meeting for the Society for Artificial Intelligence. Sorry that I have to do this through a video. I got called into work unexpectedly tonight. So I know this isn't as great as me being in there in person, but hopefully we could still get some good stuff out of it. You guys can mess around with the code that I'm going to share with you guys. And I'm going to try to keep this video brief and just give you guys a little bit of homework, maybe more so than we have in the last couple of weeks, where you guys could work together and try to solve the problems on your own. But the first thing I want to start off with is talk about kind of what, for those of you who are joining us maybe for the first time or missed last week, we've been going over these 3 states for our little bot arena. For those of you who haven't seen the program, it's just 2 little rectangles running across a map, and you can like shoot at each other and stuff. And we've just been working on changing the behaviors of the red rectangle, which is all controlled by the computer, and getting it to just have different behaviors. So actually, before I talk about the state diagram, why don't we actually get the code updated on GitHub for those of you who maybe weren't here last week or don't have access to that. So all of our code can be found on our GitHub page. I'll go ahead and pull it up right now. Also, I just want to point out, if as I'm going through like these instructions and stuff, if any of you guys are struggling or whatnot, feel free to pause the video, give yourself time to make sure everybody's on the same page, try to help each other out if someone's having issues with their code. But our page is SAI-BYUI here on GitHub. I'll pull it up right now. So yeah, there's the URL right there, github.com/SAI-BYUI. So once you go there, it's going to be the first repository that shows up on the screen, Bot Arena 2.0. And we've modified our files a little bit. Last week we talked about, we moved several classes from files and stuck them in the player file. So we deleted like the bullet file and stuff like that. So now we just have these 3 files right here. And if you want to get that code, if you haven't done so already, the easiest way to do it is to just make a new folder on your desktop and just call it whatever you want, something that's applicable to the code. So once again, just for the sake of example, I'm going to call mine bot. Okay, and once you've made that folder, come back to the GitHub page, and you're going to download the zip file. And that's going to download everything. It's going to ask you exactly like where you want to put it. And then once you find that zip file that you've downloaded, simply stick it into your folder that you created on your desktop, and that'll give you access to those files. And then you're going to want to unzip that file. And then if you haven't done so already, again, for those of you who are new, you're going to need access to PyCharm and Pygames and all those different links that we've gone over. So that can also be found on our page. If you just go to resources, Pygame files, and then Python links. Okay. So for those of you who haven't had a chance to do that, just go ahead and go through. It has the instructions here of what you need to download. Okay. So I'm not going to go through all that, since I'm sure most of you have already been to the several meetings. So once you have those files, you'll be able to import them into PyCharm by opening the folder. And for those of you guys who've already done this, maybe you can kind of show them how it's done. But you'd simply open a project, click on the little desktop icon, and then find that folder that you downloaded the code from GitHub. So like here, you can see I have mine right here, and it's already opened. Okay. All right. So sorry for those of you who have already gone through that, but I just wanted to make sure to cover that for anyone who wasn't familiar with how to do that. Okay, so now with that, let's talk about basically the first week we talked about the code for like chasing and shooting, and we demonstrated that. And then last week we wrote the code for if the AI bot gets shot a certain number of times, and that affects his variable for how healthy he is, then he'll start running away towards the health pack object that we created last week. So now we're going to connect those, basically all the states together, so that once we find the health pack, our health goes back up and we can resume chasing the player, or if we're close enough to him, the bot will just immediately start shooting. In this way, in a sense, we'll have a full yet very simple game where the bot's constantly shooting and like running away when it gets hit and then coming back to fight. And it's something you can actually like, you know, play with. All right. So again, like all these variables are attached to the player file in our Python code. So I'm gonna just hop in here and we'll start going. I'm kind of winging this. Sorry, I didn't have a whole lot of time to go through the code, but it's better than nothing, right? So let's see here. So yeah, we have our healthy variable, which is directly attached to our hit points. It's just a floating division number somewhere between 1 and 0. And when our player gets shot like 5 times, then his healthy marker drops to 0.5, and therefore like he's no longer considered healthy because he's taking a lot of damage. And then he starts running away. So let's kind of look at some of that code that we wrote last week. So it all starts here in the run battle method. This is where everything's being called from our main file. And first so last week we just did a little placeholder state called resting, where once the bot touches the health pack, he doesn't do anything. So we're going to be changing that this week. So right now that doesn't do anything, but here we're checking first, like if the player's not healthy, then change its action to fleeing and get it to run away. But if not, then we're going to check its other actions. Like, is it chasing? Then determine its movement. Is it shooting? Then shoot bullets. So one thing going back to the state diagram is all the rectangles can be represented by methods or functions. This is where all of our code basically is called. And then in our diagram, all the arrows represent the conditions based upon when we call these functions. I'll show you what I mean by that. But like we talked about here, like here the condition is if the red player is 100 pixels or more away from the blue player, then we're going to chase, and that's going to determine the code that we're going to run. Likewise, if we're less than 100, then we're going to start shooting bullets at it. Okay. So sorry, a lot of review here, but just want to make sure we understand like how that's all working here. Because as you make more complicated functions and whatnot, it's important to understand how to switch between those actions. Okay, so let's actually start writing some code. Okay, so last week we had, here's our runaway method. We created a health pack and we passed in its coordinates to this method so that we could check is the red player is like actually touching it. Okay. So here we're saying if the red player collides its rectangle with the health pack, we start resting. But now we're going to change that. So we're going to go self red. So now we want to switch his hit points variable. Because he touched the health pack, and let me make sure name for that. Okay, so actually I have an underscore here, so very important to make sure you name it the same thing. And I missed a T there, so all kinds of errors. So self reg player hit points, and we're just going to add, let's say 6. Well, 60 since it's out of 100. Okay. So, well, why don't we just make it a full 100 just in case there's any issues with that. Okay. So now that's going to store the health points to 100, but now we need to make sure we set the healthy, like update it so that it knows that it's actually back to 100%. So we're actually going to call the set healthy method here. Red player set. And I hate how Python doesn't fill it in for you, but it's going to be, okay, set underscore. This is the method, put the parentheses there. What that's going to do is just, it says, okay, my hit points are now either 100 or greater. Let's update the healthy variable so that it shows. And so, yeah, we'll just leave that print statement there. Or if statement, if self red player is player healthy, that's what it was called. I'm going to check for if it's healthy, then we need to update the current action that we were doing, which was originally fleeing, but now we need to update it to chasing. Okay. All right, so if that works, now I didn't like delete the red pack or anything, or the health pack. You guys can do that, figure out how to do that. Just have to delete the object. I'm not quite sure how you do that in Python, but okay. So he's coming here. I'm going to start shooting him. So I'm going to start chasing the health pack. And let's see. Yep, so he hit the health pack. His health is regained. And now he's chasing again. Okay, so I could probably just shoot him again and he would chase the health pack again. And I will, oh wow, look at that. Okay, that was interesting. So a little bug there, you notice, like, even though I'm shooting him, he still takes him a little longer to have his health go down. But anyway, so something to work on, just kind of figure out. But we connected the 3 actions together. So first he starts chase if he's close enough. If we hit him, he starts running away. But once he gets his health pack, he'll reset the cycle. And so you could keep playing with the spot. Obviously, there's a couple bugs there to work out. And so let's kind of talk about some stuff that you guys could work on together. So you'll notice that whenever this bot, he's not the brightest bot, when he runs into a wall, he'll start, like he'll just stop. He can't really like any obstacles or anything like that. So if I do that, see, he kind of goes there and he kind of gets stuck there in the corner. So that's the kind of homework I figure you guys could work on today together, maybe do some problem solving, try to figure out how can you get this guy to figure out if he runs, it's not really moving, like he thinks he's moving. I have these print statements right here. How is it that maybe we can get him to move around these walls so that he can get to the health pack? I'll talk about some options of how you guys can do that, and then you figure that out. So here in the player file, I added a couple new variables that have to do with movement. So you have your previous X variable, and your current X variable. And your current X variable is updated every time that the player moves. However, your previous X variable is only updated if you collide with a wall. And all this code can be found right here in the move single axis on line 68. So here we pass in like how far are we moving in the X coordinate and how far are we moving in the Y coordinate. And we update the rectangle's position accordingly. And then if we, here I'm updating on line 75, the current X is equal to the rectangle's position. And then if we collide with the wall, I'm setting the previous X coordinate to the current X. And that lets the program know, hey, we're not really moving because we hit a wall. And I tried working with it a little bit this morning. Like if the previous X is still set to the current X, then, you know, move the Y direction up and down, see if you can get it to move around the wall. And it hasn't really been working a whole lot. I'm still trying to figure it out, but that's the homework I'm going to leave you guys to work together and try to solve the problem of moving around obstacles and stuff. So that's pretty much all I have for you guys this week. Hopefully I'll be able to join you guys in person next week. Sorry again for the last minute video. I know it's kind of not the best quality, but hopefully it gives you a little bit something to work with and you guys can just have fun with it and get creative. But best guys, and I will see you next week. All right, have a good one.